I welcome you all to this very first lecture related to the week 10th on History of Arabic Literature, that is the post title. We'll be deliberating upon several aspects of the rise of novel, the fiction, and blank verse in Arabic literature. It will be all about the concept of novel as a genre and how it is to be traced in terms of origin in history. And since novel fiction as such, as part of narratology, it encompasses all the languages that have their own legacy of fiction. In terms of the concept of novel, the art of novel, the content of novel, the thematic aspects, the structural aspect of novel. So, after deliberating upon certain aspects, certain common aspects of this genre uh, as a literary genre, irrespective of the specific language localization or application. At the second stage, we'll be focusing on the advent of novel, emergence of novel, rise of novel in Arabic. It is part of the narratology. What is narratology? It is to narrate the things, to describe the things. Here it stands for the artistic description of an experience, of an event, of a content, of a meaning we tend to express. We tend to have a subject of deliberation, expression, communication. So, whenever there is a content, a meaning will be having in our mind, a concept appears, or we observe the thing happening in our surroundings. So, we have the images of these things in our mind. These images are represented by uh, words, phrases, sounds. When we want to transmit them, transform them to the others, to the recipients. So, when we subject them for communication, first capturing their image in our mind, because the first thing that happens in us while we interact, while our sense organs interact with the external reality, that images of these external objects get imprinted in our mind. And at the second stage of communication, we find we try to find different ways to communicate. Sometimes the ways are related to sounds, and then organized sounds, language sounds, the structure that is related to language, because every sound is not language. So the modes of expression, simple sounds, music, some movements like dance, then words, and if the words and the phrases constitute an array of the communicative text, we call it language. So here we narrate the things, the meanings, the imprints that we have in our mind, we narrate them. How do we narrate them? There are certain techniques, certain forms, using specific words, phrases, styles, semantics, morphology, syntactics. All these aspects of communication, communicating this primary content, meaning. When seen, when given a structured entity, then it is narration. And the art of narration, the science of narration is narratology. Now, this narratology as such is not exclusively related to or confined to fiction. So it might be events, actual events, it might be depicting things happening in society, simple facts and figures, some data. So these things will be having. If this is the situation, then we can it will be something other than fiction. In order to be fiction, it has to have some specific uh, characteristics, both in terms of structure as well as content. Like it has to be based on the very the constituting parts of literature, the things that make a text that turn a text into literature. That is al-atifa, al-fikra, al-khayal, al-sura al-lafziyya. It is the meaning. We call it thought, the emotions, the images, imaginary, and of course the structure, the specific structure constituting of constituted by the words, the word structure. So this turns a text into literature, as we have seen. Now, if the thing that is narrated, the subject of our of the narrative, is not a depiction of the exact reality, the reality as it appears outside of our minds in the external world, which is external reality. Like we are simply mentioning the events, giving the dates, the facts and figures, the statistics, the hard realities as they are. So that won't be fiction. Fiction has to be based on certain other aspects, elements, like imaginary images primarily, then a specific structure, which has, of course, these structures has evolved in the due course of history. So here we'll be having the stories or the fictions. When we look into fiction in several perspectives, chiefly in historical perspectives, how the humans started narrating the events, narrating the things, or started how the humans started having images of things, sometimes real, sometimes unreal, sometimes simply based on imagination. So, in the due course of time, in different phases of history, we'll be finding that early stages of history, the things that were narrated as fiction, they were the legends, the myths, mythologies, legends. And of course, a mythology is the thing that cannot be seen as a representation of the reality, actual reality, hard reality, historical facts and figures in each and every circumstances. So it might exercise a fair amount of a good deal of liberty. So it will be based on like the imaginary things which do not have their existence in reality. So, and each and every nation, all the civilizations of the world, humanity in all the phases of its existence and artistic expressions, humanity has resorted to create some images, have legends, mythologies of religious, social, spiritual, natures primarily. So here we'll be having a difference between fiction and legends. Now, as regards to the novel in present literary form, so it's a byproduct of the 18th century. It appeared during the 18th century. A society-wide inclination of fiction that realistically represented life. Readers aligned themselves with individualism. Readers were becoming more mature intellectually and emotionally. The growing influence and power of the middle class. That's primarily a big difference between the fiction, the novel, and the stories of whatever size, whatever proportion, magnitude, significance were during the Middle Ages or in past times, remote past times. So they were not representatives of the middle class or the common peoples in society. Rather, they were more related to the elites, to the ruling class, to the rulers, the sultans, the emperors, etc., or those having greater influence in domains of, say, theology, the clergymen, the priestly class, because they had yielded immense power through ages. Compared to this, we'll be finding the modern fiction more inclined towards the power of the middle class, because here the primary parameter that that played role in very definition of literature, language and literature, is that it must be representing the sum total of life, not simply some fractions of life, some pockets of life, some segments of life, like the privileged sections of society also. When there is a text, there is a narration, whether it is a story or it is fiction or legend or general writings. They have their readership. They have their readership in society. Now, while classifying readership into broadly two classes, two segments, that is the male and female segments, so we'll be finding that fiction as such had played a very significant role in attracting a significant segment of readership from the society, consisting of the women, the female readership. So, female leadership has been associated significantly with the fiction novel in modern times. So, a novel is as such, by definition, an extended work of narrative fiction, usually written in prose and published as a book. So, in order to be to characterize a text as a novel, it is assumed, it is presumed primarily that it will be written in prose and will be published. So it hardly happens that there is a narrative fiction novel which is written in poetry. So poetry novel is not in poetry, rather it is in prose form. Although we'll be finding that some aspects of fiction, because fiction is not limited to novel, drama is also fiction, but we'll be having that in due course of history, drama has evolved in as much to include some poetic forms. So we'll be having the poetic drama, and we'll be having the non-poetic drama or the prose drama. Back from the antiquity, from the Middle Ages or before. So the poetic drama, both prevalent in India, in ancient India, all these epics are in, of course, in poetic forms. Alongside the epics literature from Greece, uh, Homer's Iliad and Odyssey, etc. Very significant examples. So they are in poetry. They are in poetry. Shakuntala, this legend, the famous drama uh, from ancient India. So it's in prose form. So we'll be having the poetic drama and non-poetic drama, and of late it has become part of the Arab literary enterprise. First, it was through translations. There were translations of when there were translations from the poetic drama from other languages into Arabic, and after that, we'll be finding some men of literature, some poets composing poetic drama in poetry. But with the exception of this specific genre, and with examples not very common, it doesn't constitute a grand legacy, a significant section of legacy. Well, you're finding that prose, it is the prose that happens to be the preferred mode of communication in fiction. So the word derives from the Italian novella for new, news or short story, or sometimes new itself from the Latin novella, a singular noun, use of the neuter gender, plural of novellus, diminutive of novus, meaning new. So it is something new. So novella, novel based on novella, Latin, Italian, and Italian novella again from novella, Latin. Primarily, it conveys the meaning of it has the content of new. It indicates the thing that is new. So, concept of being new, a thing that is new, is inherently present in the definition of in the very definition of in the very word that it stands for, that we use now, that has been used as a terminology. So finally, it is to be designated as literary prose. So it is literary prose. It's not common prose. It's not academic prose. It's not a philosophical prose. It's not a scientific prose. The prose we live having in domains of sciences, like in biology or physics or mathematics, natural sciences or experimental sciences, or even the social sciences like history or political science, or some other sciences like law, so language of law, of constitution, etc. So here it is in the literary prose, the prose related to having that form that qualifies it for playing the role of a literary agent, and hence having this purpose. So in this way, it has to be literary prose. If the novel is not characterized by use of necessary use of literary prose, it will be a point of a point that will be disassociating us from considering this text as a good example of a novel. Going back into the earliest examples of novel in human history, so the earliest recorded novels included those produced by the Greeks and the Latins. So the classical Greek and Latin prose narratives from the 1st century BC to the 2nd century AD, such as Sheridan's Gallriho in the mid 1st century, which is arguably the earliest surviving Western novel, as well as Petronius Satyricon, Lucian's True Story, Apuleius the Golden S, and anonymous Aesop romance and Alexander romance. These are the earliest specimen of novels which have been recorded by history. Then these works were often influenced by some oral traditions. The fact is that this is again something to be taken into account. Notably, these specimen of the earliest surviving novels or fractions of novels, segments of novels, storytelling. They were produced by, they were influenced by oral traditions. And it was only at a later stage of time that they were recorded in history. Narrative forms were also developed in classical Sanskrit in India during the 5th through 8th centuries. Vaswadatta by Subandhu is one of the examples, among many other examples we'll be having. Kadambari also. These narrative forms were influenced by much older classical Sanskrit plays as regards the Indian literary traditions. The first novels in English will be having several examples, several entities quoted as analyzed as the first specimen of novel, first novels in English. Thomas Malory, Le Morte d'Arthur, Le Morte d'Arthur, that is Death of Arthur. It was written Sirsa 1470, 1470. William Baldwin's Beware the Cat, written in 1553. John Lilly Erfusius, The Anatomy of Wit, 1578. Philip Sidney, 1581. Margaret Cavendish, The Description of a New World, 1666. John Bunyan, The Pilgrim's Progress from the World, 1678. Aphra Behn, 1680. This Anonymous, 1693. Daniel Defoe, 1719. And the Further Adventures of Robinson Crusoe, 1719. So Robinson Crusoe. This has been highlighted because of in the backdrop of his relation, how it is related to an Arab paradigm, an Arab text of which is the earliest example of fiction, of a novel in Arabic as well as in Eastern languages, which have been subject of our deliberation. So Samuel Richardson, Pamela, or Virtue Rewarded, 1740. So these are some of the specimen, some of the novels in English which have been projected to be the first novels. Now in 1160, it was Ibn Tufail who wrote Hayy ibn Yaqdan in Andalusia. And this Hayy ibn Yaqdan, this work has influenced later European literature during the Age of Enlightenment, turning into a bestseller during the 17th, 18th centuries, influencing a significant number of persons, philosophers, like John Locke, especially in his concept of tabula rasa, as propounded in an essay concerning human understanding in 1690. David Hume, George Berkeley. So Thomas Hobbes, John Locke, even Isaac Newton and Immanuel Kant, scholars have found that during analysis, that Hayy ibn Yaqzan's influences are found in their thoughts. So, in order to pinpoint the thing in historical evidence perspectives, we'll be having Edward Pocock. Edward Pocock doing the translation of Hayy ibn Yaqzan from Arabic into Latin. So this is the Latin translation of Hayy ibn Yaqzan. He was a professor, first professor of Arabic in Oxford, and he's known for several books, including this book that is actually a translation of Hayy ibn Yaqzan by Ibn Tufail into Latin. That is a Philosophus Autodidactus. It's known as Philosophus Autodidactus. This Philosophus Autodidactus was translated into English by Simon Oakley as the History of Hayy ibn Yaqzan. So first it is translated into Latin, and after that it is translated into English. And of course, these are the facts well recorded by history. We have the evidences before you. We can simply see these titles. At the second stage, you'll be finding that there is another risala, another tract known as Theologus Autodidactus. In Arabic, it is Ar-Risala al-Kamiliyya fi Sira Nabawiyya by Ibn Nafis. Ibn Nafis was a physician, was a jurist, a man of letters of Spain, who died in the year 1288. It was written sometimes between 1268 and 1277, and is considered one of the earliest examples of novel in Arabic literature. So, and also when we just analyze the contents, we find that the novel contains elements of science fiction and is an early example of a coming-of-age tale and a desert island story. So, in this sequence, we'll be having Hayy ibn Yaqzan by Ibn Tufail, and then Ibn Nafis writing Theologus Autodidactus. First, it is Philosophus Autodidactus, then it is Theologus Autodidactus. It was partly response to the philosophical novel Hayy ibn Yaqzan by the Andalusian writer Ibn Tufail. This is the Arabic version of the Theologus Autodidactus. It has been translated into different languages, including English. The Theologus Autodidactus by Max Meyerhoff and Joseph Schacht, although it has happened at a later stage. So these two stories from East, from Arab East, finding ways, the first, of course, during the Middle Ages, finding ways into the European milieu of literature and literary culture. They have played a notable role in the analysis of the historians of literature in East and West. This has some other series. There are some other series of the early writings, novels, early writings, early fictions in Arabic or in the Eastern languages, as we'll be having, like Persian. In the case of Arabian Nights, Alf Layla wa Layla, which was primarily based on Hazar Afsana. Alf Layla wa Layla is based on Alf Layla wa Layla. So Antoine Galland, it was Antoine Galland, 1646 to 1715, who had fully translated Arabian Nights, Alf Layla wa Layla, into French. Although a manuscript translated from Arabic by Dom Chavis, who was an Arabic teacher in Paris, in this sequence, it is supposed that Dom Chavis translation was the earliest one. This was later adapted and published by the French author Cazot, which contained these revoked translations. But a French translation was done by Antoine Galland in 1704, which was later translated into other European languages, including English and German. This is Antoine Galland's translation of Alif Layla wa Layla. Alongside other works which will be discussed in this sequence, like the Kalila wa Dimna, which was translated into Latin by John of Capua. John of Capua was born earlier than 1250 and died later than 1300, that is in the 14th century. So this translation, the translation of these two Eastern works, Alif Layla wa Layla and Kalila wa Dimna, have played a very notable role in promoting the very idea of, in the evolution of the idea of fiction in Europe itself. So with this, we'll be concluding this lecture. Thank you.